What if I told you that some of the biggest hits of the 1980s weren't new at all? Behind the neon lights and synth-driven sound, many chart toppers were actually reborn treasures from the 60s.
I know I've got to run away.
Songs that once slipped through the cracks but later conquered the world. From George Harrison to Soft Cell,
Tainted love. Now I know.
from Blondie to Phil Collins, these covers didn't just echo the past, they transformed it into timeless anthems.
Got my mind set on you. I got my mind set.
James Ray recorded the original version of Got My Mind Set on You in 1962, but the song went nowhere.
I've got my mind set on you. I've got my mind set.
Ray, a promising R&B singer with a tragically short career, died in his early 20s, leaving behind only a small catalog. It seemed his song would vanish into obscurity, but fate had other plans. During a visit to the United States in 1963, George Harrison discovered Ray's record while staying with his sister in Illinois. That moment planted a seed that Harrison would not return to for more than 2 decades. By 1987, Harrison was recording his Cloud 9 album and remembered the tune.
I got my mind set on you. Set on you. I got my mind.
With Jeff Lynne producing, he gave it a fresh, polished sound filled with 80s energy. The cover became his third #1 solo single on the Billboard charts, and remarkably, his only #1 not written by himself. Even more significant, it turned out to be the last time any Beatle reached the top of the charts as a solo artist. A song that once languished in obscurity now lives on as one of the decade's most enduring pop anthems. Did you know this song almost vanished before the 80s brought it back? Gloria Jones first recorded Tainted Love in 1964, a soul track filled with raw energy but completely overlooked in the United States.
I've got to get away. You don't really want me.
Despite her talent and ties to the R&B scene, the single never charted and remained a hidden gem. Jones later became better known for her relationship with Mark Bolan of T-Rex than for her music, leaving the song almost forgotten. For years, it existed only as an underground favorite in Britain, passed around by collectors who treasured obscure soul records. 17 years later, Soft Cell resurrected the song with a dark, electronic twist.
Run away. I've got to get away.
Their 1,981 cover became a phenomenon, hitting #1 in the UK and climbing to #8 in the US, where it stayed on the charts for an astonishing 43 weeks. Its cold synths and hypnotic rhythm captured the mood of the new decade, turning an overlooked soul track into a defining anthem of the 80s. For many listeners, Soft Cell's version eclipsed the original entirely, showing how a forgotten tune could transform into a global hit. The Paragons, a Jamaican rocksteady group, recorded The Tide is High in 1967 as a B-side single. Written by John Holt, it carried the laid-back reggae groove of Kingston but never reached the international spotlight. Outside Jamaica, few even knew it existed, and in the United States it failed to make any chart impact.
But I'm holding on. I'm gonna be.
It remained tucked away in the archives of Caribbean music, remembered only by reggae enthusiasts. Then came Blondie in 1980. Retaining the reggae spirit but adding Debbie Harry's shimmering vocals, they released the track on their Auto-American album. Their version soared to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming the band's third chart topper and one of their most recognizable songs worldwide. Blondie's recording didn't just revive the Paragons' overlooked track, it introduced reggae-infused pop to mainstream American radio. What began as a hidden B-side in the 60s turned into a global anthem 2 decades later. When Neil Diamond released Red Red Wine in 1968, he was still shaping his career. The track, a mournful ballad about drowning sorrows in alcohol, barely reached #62 on the Billboard charts. Unlike his future hits such as Sweet Caroline or Cherry, This song lacked the spark to break through, and it slowly faded into the background.
Red, red wine.
For many, it was just another overlooked entry in his vast catalog. 15 years later, UB40 reinvented the tune with a reggae arrangement that gave it new life.
Red, red wine.
At first, their 1983 version only managed to reach number 34 in the US. But when re-released in 1988 with an added rap-like section, it exploded to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. What once felt like a forgotten ballad now became a worldwide anthem, proving how a fresh style could completely rewrite a song's destiny. Few songs show the power of reinvention like Burt Bacharach and Hal David's Always Something There to Remind Me. The first charting version by Lou Johnson in 1964 stalled at number 49 on the Billboard Hot 100, despite its polished soul delivery.
How it felt to kiss the attack. Oh, how can I?
Even though Dionne Warwick and Sandy Shaw also recorded it soon after, with Shaw scoring a UK number 1, the song never fully cemented itself as a transatlantic hit. Its potential was clear, but the right moment hadn't arrived. That moment came nearly 2 decades later.
There is always something there to remind me.
In 1983, Naked Eyes transformed the track with bright synths and a crisp production style that captured the 80s perfectly. Their version rose to number 8 on the Billboard charts, giving them their only top 10 single. It became one of those rare cases where a 60s classic found its ultimate home in a completely different era, showing how timeless songwriting can adapt and thrive when reborn for a new audience. The Intruders recorded Together in 1967, crafted by the legendary Gamble and Huff. Despite its smooth harmonies and heartfelt delivery, it only climbed to number 48 on the Billboard charts. The group would later find greater fame with Cowboys to Girls, but this particular track never became the hit it deserved. For years, it sat quietly in the catalog of Philadelphia soul, admired but not celebrated. Then, in 1980, the Latin R&B band Tierra revived the song with their own interpretation. Their version reached number 18 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming their one and only top 40 entry. While critics often felt the Intruders' original carried more emotional depth, the timing and crossover appeal of Tierra's version gave it a second life. Together proved that even a modest 60s soul track could find a larger audience when reimagined in a new era. Which version do you think captured the soul of the song best?
Have I told you that I love you?
William Bell, one of Stax Records' most reliable artists, released I Forgot to Be Your Lover in 1968. With its tender lyrics and soulful delivery, the track became a minor success, peaking at number 45 on the Billboard charts.
I wanna make everything all right, yeah.
It carried the trademark Stax sound, filled with emotion and subtle instrumentation, but it never crossed into mainstream recognition. Bell's version remained beloved among soul fans, but largely unknown outside that circle. Almost 20 years later, Billy Idol transformed the song into something entirely different. Retitled To Be a Lover in 1986, he infused it with pounding rhythms, synth-driven production, and his trademark snarling vocals. The result was explosive. The track soared to number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100, giving Idol one of his biggest hits. What began as a tender soul ballad turned into a fierce rock anthem, showing how a great melody could survive any reinvention. Simon and Garfunkel first released A Hazy Shade of Winter in 1966. It was a striking piece, darker and more urgent than many of their folk classics, and it still climbed to number 13 on the Billboard charts. With its urgent guitar riffs and reflective lyrics, it stood out in their catalog, yet it never reached the same legendary status as The Sound of Silence or Bridge Over Troubled Water. For 2 decades, it lingered as a respected but slightly forgotten track. Then came the Bangles in 1987. They electrified the song for the Less Than Zero soundtrack, layering harmonies and pushing the tempo into pure 80s rock.
The sky is a hazy shade of winter.
Their version exploded onto the airwaves, rising all the way to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Fans and critics alike praised it as a rare case where a cover matched or even surpassed the original. It remains one of the defining moments of the Bangles' career, a cover that turned nostalgia into commercial triumph. Is it reinvention or nostalgia that makes a cover explode on the charts?
Here she comes now, sing a moaning.
In 1968, Tommy James and the Shondells delivered Mony Mony, a rollicking anthem with a title inspired by a sign for the Mutual of New York. The song raced to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. Proving James could produce more than bubblegum pop. Its raw energy made it a staple of late 60s rock, and it became one of their most recognizable hits. Yet, despite its success, no one could predict the strange journey the song would take decades later. Billy Idol first recorded the song in 1981, but his studio version only bubbled under the charts. 6 years later, however, he captured the fire of Mony Mony in a live performance and released it as a single. That raw, sweaty energy connected instantly with audiences. In 1987, the live cover shot to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming Idol's only chart-topping single. Ironically, it replaced another Tommy James cover, Tiffany's I Think We're Alone Now, making this moment one of the quirkiest chart coincidences of the decade. Back in 1965, the Mindbenders introduced A Groovy Kind of Love to the world. Written by Tony Wine and Carol Bayer-Sager, it became a fast success, shooting to number 2 on both the US and UK charts. At the time, the word groovy had never even been used in a pop song before.
Would you agree, baby, you and me got a groovy kind of.
And its fresh, romantic charm made it one of the group's defining tracks. Still, as the 60s faded, so did the song's presence, becoming a nostalgic memory rather than a constant radio staple. 2 decades later, Phil Collins revived it for the soundtrack of Buster in 1988. He stripped the song down, slowing the tempo and delivering a heartfelt vocal that resonated with a whole new generation. The result was nothing short of spectacular. Collins' version climbed to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and the UK charts, surpassing the Mindbenders' original achievement. What had once been a playful mid-60s hit returned as a soaring 80s ballad, proving that a timeless melody can always find its moment again. It closed the decade as one of Collins' most memorable recordings, a perfect blend of nostalgia and reinvention. From George Harrison's rediscovery to Phil Collins' emotional ballad, the 80s showed us that the spirit of the 60s never really faded away. These covers didn't just revive old songs, they gave them new meaning, new audiences, and in many cases, greater success than the originals ever had. It's proof that great music can travel through time and reinvent itself endlessly. Now tell us in the comments, which of these covers do you feel truly outshined the 60s original?